You
So
say you
what?
want love, but are you healed enough to sustain it? Welcome to the Purpose and
Mm.
Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lester, and joining me is my co-host, Thomas. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who may need this conversation. Tonight's episode is Unhealed and Unavailable. We often think our biggest relationship challenge is finding the right person. But what if the real challenge is becoming emotionally available for the love we're praying for? Tonight, we're having an honest conversation about how unresolved wounds shape the way we love, the way we trust, communicate, and even connect, and why healing isn't just for you, it's for every relationship you'll ever have. So let's have a real conversation. How are you tonight, Thomas?
I'm doing good, doing good, doing good, doing good. You know, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Many people say they want love, they want companionship and commitment. But desire alone does not make someone emotionally available.
Right.
A lot of people want a lot of things, but can you handle it? And a person can sincerely want a relationship while still being what is the word I'm looking for? Unprepared to participate. You know what I'm saying? And so you know and this is a difficult conversation because it's one thing to be it's that whole who was that, Shirley Murdoch, back in the day used to sing that song As We Lay, and then he was talking about your mind is over your body's here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town. You know, because unresolved issues, um, and that's where it happens when we get into these relationships that you're hurt, because even though you're with that person, the pain from another relationship a lot of times be there. And so being unhealed does not make someone a bad person. However, refusing to address the wounds can cause pain for everyone involved. And it's not, and the problem is, and as we get into this, it's not just the other person. It could be the kids, if there are kids involved. It can be, it could be your work. So it can be bad for a whole lot of things. So let's dive into it. I just wanted to throw that out there because this was one of those that you let me brew on it too long.
Well, it's got to be a comeback episode, right? So I'll start with the opening question. Let's get down to the root issue. How do unhealed wounds quietly turn someone into an unavailable partner, even when they say they want love?
Mm. So unhealed wounds often create survival I would say survival. It puts you in survival mode. Yeah,
Right.
that's what we're talking about. Um, that once protected you, but now is actually preventing. It protected you because it kept everything together. But at the same time, when you're trying to start a new relationship, it actually can prevent it, because what happens is that now the same thing that protected you, now you're trying to fight it. It's like being behind a locked door and trying to get out. And the other person on the other side is looking at you through a screen mesh, and they're saying, "Hey, oh, even better, even worse. You got this big glass that they can see the whole person, they can feel the whole person, but they can't touch the whole person because the whole person is stuck behind a glass that they're trying to get out of." So, so un, so, and you may truly desire love, and associate close, but yet you can associate closeness with rejection, if that makes sense. You feeling me? Huh?
You're on it. You're on it. For sure.
So, betrayal, abandonment, and all of these things, disappointment, you can do it with control. It just gets crazy because everything that the person, one person might be trying to help you. They're like, hey, I'm good. We're okay. This is okay. We can work through this. And you're like, no, okay, I done heard that before. Because that's what you said to your last partner. We can work through this. And then you ended up hurt. You ended up out OTF, out there flapping. Because we working through this. Yes, let's work through this. And the shoe's on the other foot. Because you think you're working through it. But really you're standing behind a glass wall, looking at it and fighting. But you don't want the other person to know that you're fighting to try to get behind the glass wall because you want them to be comfortable with you, but yet you're not comfortable with yourself because you're not in a comfortable place with you. Did that answer the question? I hope it did. That was a whole lot of talking.
No, I get it. I like the direction you're going in. So I think rephrasing it probably looks a little bit more like, so we talked about how to unhealed wounds quietly turn someone into an unavailable partner even when they say they want love. It's the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, unhealed wounds don't stop us from wanting love. They change how we actually respond to it. So many people think emotional unavailability looks like someone who doesn't care, but often
Mm-hmm.
it's just someone who cares deeply and still doesn't know how to trust, receive, or sustain healthy love. So it creates a situation of fear where there should actually be freedom, and it causes them to question genuine intentions because they're expecting disappointment and they protect themselves from the connection that they've been praying for because they can't get the clutter of the unhealed wound or get past the unhealed wound to be able to see now this is the person I've been waiting for. This is the person God has for me. And that's what makes the
So,
unhealed wound dangerous, right? And that's why healing
so
really matters, right? Because you don't become unavailable because you don't want love. You become unavailable because your pain convinces you that love is not safe.
I don't know if you're even unavailable. I think it's more of, I think you can say that it might be more of untouchable because you're
Even
there.
harder though, right? Because most people say they can't find the right person. And we know all about the whole, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and all that, right? But it's getting over unhealed wounds prevents you
Hmm.
from being the right person, right? So the
So
question is, are you becoming the kind of person who can receive healthy love that you're asking God for, rather than wanting someone else to come in and be the answer? It's a response and receptor situation,
yeah, it
not
is.
putting it
But
all on the other person, right?
well, I told you this was a hard one. So when you really want to look at it, is being comfortable with the love that you're looking for, if that makes sense. Because it's not the point that you're not available. I think it's the point that you're available, but you don't want to be vulnerable, which makes you unavailable at a certain level. Because you're available for touch, but you're not available for the emotional stability of love. You're
Right, which is why
available
it's called
for.
unhealed, right? That's the
I
focus
don't
is
even know
when
if
you're
it's
not.
unhealed because it might be healed
Well, they
because
don't.
some they healed, but it's one thing to be healed, but it's another thing to be whole.
Well,
It's
here's
just like a
here's
sword.
here's
It's
where
just
I
like a
think it's
sword.
important for us right now, before going
Okay.
forward, is to go ahead and define unhealed, what it looks like when you're healed,
Hmm.
and what it looks
Okay.
like when you're whole. Because if you don't know the difference, You
They
might
all
think
look the same. They might look the
because of a
same.
time. You know how they say time heals all wounds, but really you
Mm-hmm.
haven't dealt with something and you just say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, that relationship was 2 years ago, but you didn't do any healing from the relationship. You've only looked at
Right.
time because you don't think about that person anymore. Doesn't mean that you haven't uncovered this unhealed wound yet until you run into a situation like the triggers of being with somebody else. You not realizing that it really wasn't something tied to the person you were with, but it's a trigger for you point blank. So the moment that person comes along and does something that reminds you of this person that you used to be with, not associating that your issue is with the thing you're confronting and it just happened to be brought about in the past relationship. And now that person is just starting to remind you because it's the first time you encountered said issue. Here's one, right? Because we have to give examples. Examples make things clear. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't love yourself and you expected the love to come from an outside and you didn't know the difference, you would think that tough love was an unfair concept when the person really wanted you to be better. So they might say, oh, Erica, you're late all the time. And this is real simple, right? Because I was in a relationship that had this where the person was super timely. And so then I'm dealing with somebody who's on time is 15 minutes early. Sort of kind of like the concept of the military, right? If you're on
Mm-hmm.
time, you're late. So if you're 15 minutes early, then that's on time. If you're not calling to say you're on your way or you're going to be late or whatever, before that 15-minute marker, that person's expecting you to be there. So I, it would just always be bad timing. Me thinking I had more time than I had, just not really kind of dealing with it, right? In that context. So one time I got to this destination there earlier than we had agreed to meet. And I thought, oh, well, I got 32 minutes. Let me go run in Ross really quick and just go check some things out so I don't have to be sitting out in this parking lot for Home Depot. Well, the 32 minutes went by real quick, and now I'm 5 minutes late. So I get in the store, and the person is so upset. And now in your mind, you be thinking 5 minutes ain't a big deal. It was a big deal to that person because they say, well, when you're not on time, that makes me feel like you don't respect me because you know how I am about time. Okay, now fast forward, right? I'm not with this person anymore. That's not my situation. I did learn and I strove to be a person more of timeliness. So then what I found is that I started encountering people who were worse off in the time perspective than I was. And I was annoyed. Now, I was healed in that place, but it brought about friction to get to that point because when the person would tell me, you were always late, that would kind of get on my nerves and I'd just be like writing that off, mentally. But the moment he said, it makes me feel like you don't respect me, that got my attention. So then I started evaluating everybody by that standard and it started being annoying. Now, I give people grace. That person, their grace factor was just a little more skewed. But I have to
Mm-hmm.
tell you that I'm healed in that place and I'm made whole in that place. I will give people grace knowing that that's where I've mainly been recovered from. That was such a hard transition. But that's just simply to say that I could just have made it a tribute or a factor of that relationship and said, hey, well, I might have been late, but this person, they did this, they did that, they did this to me. I didn't feel like I was respected in this area. See, now you're deflecting and you're not really dealing with the issue. Disrespect comes in all forms. But see,
Mm-hmm.
unhealed would be me thinking that being not timely, that person was just tripping, and I could just keep on acting like I didn't respect anybody's time after that point. It just made me see it differently. So now that we come back to what we're talking about with the root
Mm-hmm.
issue of what is unhealed, what is healed, and what is
Mm-hmm.
whole. For the people
Okay.
back, define that for us.
Okay. unhealed.
Let me call out to the
So,
Lord. Your face looked like you was calling straight out to the Lord. I mean, call out to him, but not for the answer to this question.
uh,
I think he gave you what
okay.
you got to get it done.
So, I mean, I'm trying to come up with a definition that the unhealed is, it's emotional wounds, painful experiences, it's trauma, rejection, betrayal, grief, disappointment that hadn't been fully processed, understood or resolved from a relationship, and it's from relationships. And the challenge is that it don't have to be a male female relationship. It can be a parental relationship or a friend relationship, because all of those come into play um, when you are doing having a relationship that one that you want to proceed in, that's more than a brotherly or parental relationship. Um, an unhealed person may have moved on in time, but the pain still influence how they think, trust, communicate, react, or connect with others. Um, so so and I'm talking out loud, but trying to bring it into, so unhealed doesn't mean unworthy or broken, but it means that there are unresolved things or unresolved issues that still have power over their current behavior. Does that make sense?
Yes, so that's what I
I know
wanted
my
you to
face was
define
all
that.
tore up, but
Yeah, but I
huh?
wanted you to define that because I think it's important for this particular discussion.
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah.
I tried, so okay, I was trying to make it simple.
Yeah,
Is
but that's
caring,
okay. So let's look at
so
it, frame it a little bit like this, right? So if we say the definition of unhealed person is someone whose unresolved wounds continue to influence how they think, how they trust, communicate, respond, and relate to others. They're not necessarily broken, which I think that's what you're saying. They're simply
yeah,
allowing yesterday's pain to shape today's decisions.
okay,
That's why they distrust healthy people because of unhealthy experiences. They react instead of respond. They pull away when relationships become vulnerable, and they see love through the lens of fear instead of freedom. Your pain isn't a problem, it's when your pain becomes your decision making,
okay.
right?
We can go with that. We can go with
All right.
that.
So, healing, right? Being healed. Healed person, they acknowledge their wounds, they process them, learn from them, and refuse to let them dictate how they love or how they live. Because healing doesn't erase the scars, it just changes their influence. So, just in the same way, framework, example, they're able to trust wisely, they communicate honestly, they don't project past pain onto present people. Say that for the people back. They don't project past pain onto present people, and they set boundaries from wisdom, not from fear. So, healing doesn't remove the scar, it removes the power the wound once had over you. What do you think about that?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So then what about whole? What you think about from the wholeness perspective?
Wholeness is able to a healthy sense of identity, values, very stable, and the purpose is not dependent on another person's completing or rescuing or validating them. They've came past the hurt. They can deal with the emotions, and they are totally confident in where they are. So even though they've had the past hurt is a reminder, but it's not a something that causes them to go into a panic mode, or they respond instead of react.
Right.
So the whole person, it's like fight or flight. You don't fight or flight. You stand, you assess, you make an intelligent decision, and then you move forward or you move backwards. But it's not, hey, I'm out of here because this lady just said this, or this woman just said this to me, and that's just what my other girlfriend I had or other wife said or whatever. But you say, okay, this is a reminder. This does bring up a point. Now let me just investigate a little bit further. And now you make an intelligent decision, not based upon emotional reactions or responses. Okay. Um, they're not dependent on that person's relation. So, you know, a whole person can give love a lot better because they're giving it from their heart and not from a place of fear or caution. That makes sense? So, and I always go back to I tell my wife sometimes, I say, you complete me. What does that mean? That means that I've come to a point that I'm dependent on her for something. I've come to a point that I've allowed her to be a part of my wholeness. So when a person is whole in a relationship, unmarried, then that person should be able to carry all their own baggage without depending on somebody else to carry it. They're not looking for that in that person, um, if that makes sense. I need you to accept me. Okay. You know, well, I need you to love me. Okay. What does that mean?
Mhm.
I love you as a friend, but, I need more than that. Okay. We're not there. Well, I don't know how to handle that. Then we got issues because something is wrong. Um, and sometimes people try to men especially, and I'm saying men, but men try to overcate over a lot of men attempt to, in my circle, I'm going to say in my circle,
Mhm.
they try to overcompensate with finances. Their insecurities is overcompensated with finances. So they try to buy their way, they try to buy their security from a sense with a woman. Not from a sense of sex, but from a sense of, having them, oh, he's financially stable. He's a good man. He takes care of me. But in the sense of now that other person being unstable and a lot of times they kind of ride on each other. The woman might be saying, okay, I want to see how much this man is going to take care of me because the last person I had didn't take care of me. He didn't invest in me. I want to have this person invest in me. So you have this one side that's looking at a man that's investing in her from a sense of money, time, and all of that. Here's the man that's saying, okay, I can give you all this money. I can't give you all this time, but I'm going to make my money be there for you so that you can believe in me. So somewhere there's a mixed match in that. And that's where that unhealthiness, that's where that unwholeness, that's where that, now you're trying to cover one thing up with another. Whereas, two people walking into each one carrying their own weight, not depending on the other person for anything, but having a mutual relationship where they are coming together mentally and spiritually, not physically, from into a place where they can truly begin to know each other, and not depend on each other until it comes to the point of, engagement, until the point of marriage, really.
You brought up something really interesting. So for the men group that you're in, do you think that they're using money to actually hide from
I think some do.
Being hide their hurt, like it's something a mask to not deal with where they've been hurt in the past.
Yes. I mean, yes, I would say they do because they'll turn around and they'll, hey, look, yeah, I can lose. Let's go out to dinner this way. Let's go out to this. And they keep themselves busy. They keep the relationship away from where they're hurt. And they maneuver around that hurt until they get to a place that they're comfortable enough to either try to explain it or, in a sense, strive um, to move to another place or take it to another place where they can work through it.
So it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, somewhat, yes.
And it really means that they are emotionally unavailable because they're just using that as distraction.
Well, their emotion, yes. I have to say yes, because they're emotionally unavailable while they're emotionally there. And many times that distraction, works out and nobody knows the difference until, you strive to do something different or work to do something else. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, what is going on here? Because now, the woman's trying to move forward with a relationship or trying to get some clarity on where they are and trying to tie this person, not tie them down from a sense of I'm trying to get married, but tie them down from a point of where they are in this relationship. And that person really have not dealt with it yet.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, we have to identify things in time in our lives, going back to the unhealed, the healed, and the whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that I've been able to journey kind of through certain things in my life is to confront the ugly truth, right? So, um, having been married twice before, I could tell you that in my healing journey, I realized that in both of those marriages, entering those marriages, I was running from something, not running towards something. I think in the first one, I discovered, or rather uncovered, that I was really running away from my then identity of being a daughter or sister, friend, and all the things. And I didn't really necessarily want to confront the world and go find or be found by some unknown person. So it made it easier to marry like my high school sweetheart, right? Rather than just to say, oh, well, I'm joining the military and I will actually be meeting people all the way around the world and there are other fish in the sea. You know what I'm saying? So it was a way to
Mm.
leave the parents' house and to leave the expectations of somebody else telling me what to do and me having some control over my own life and facing adulthood with someone togetherness, right? And so then when I look at, okay, well, healing took place, but there was still some brokenness there. So then when I got into my second marriage, now I'm trying to shed the old identity of a failed marriage where I was
Mm-hmm.
then. Like, I was at the turn of getting into my career field and transitioning into what did legacy look like. I'm 30, so I'm looking at, can we start this family and meet societal expectations? So you can be in different stages all at the same time. You can be unhealed in a place, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you looked at my professional career or you saw the transition of the work that I did, you'd be thinking, oh man, she is doing excellent. And I was, but that meant that I was just healthy in an aspect of my life. Like I said, there was
And
still
that's where a lot of
growth.
people, believe it or not, that's where a lot of people are. And they capitalize on where they're not unbroken. They will make that their strong point. A whole person understand where their weaknesses are, their strengths are, and where their holes are. There's a difference. And they will sidestep their holes. They will make sure that their weaknesses and their strengths actually improve or covers the hole. Now, the problem with that is that that's what they define as a whole person. But when you really look at it, it's not a whole person. It's a person that looks whole on the outside, but still have a lot of work to do through the middle.
Mhm.
And you know, it's like it goes back to that scab, that wound. You know, even though the skin is nice and you know, you see a wound and I don't know, some people might have had this. I stuck a nail through my foot.
Painful.
Okay. And so there's a big gash that went through it. Even though that gash healed, every now and then, if I step the wrong way, I can feel that skin still tear sometimes. And it hurts. And it's like, ow. So, but that's years later. But how do I compensate for that? Do I go back and I start talking about, oh my goodness, that's that nail, and Lord, oh. And I said, oh wow, that still hurt. And I keep moving because I know I shouldn't move in that direction. That doesn't mean I'm not whole. I'm whole. I'm healed, but I still have a wound. That
I
makes
like that.
sense?
I like that. So I'm gonna ask the preacher, the reverend inside of you on this one.
Let me take a drink.
People do this. I know they do this. I'm gonna ask the question because I won't point fingers at any known persons, and I'm not saying you or me. I think that we've been here in life, but I'm just saying for the audience. Can waiting
I
on
don't even know how
God
to take
become an
this.
excuse for avoiding the work God is asking us to do in our journey to wholeness?
Oh, we all done did that. Yeah.
And
And
some
you
people
know,
would
I
think that it's
always,
not. So I need you to
but
break
see,
that
here's the
down
thing.
so they can identify it.
I always go back to the man on the roof. And that's that old analysis of the man sitting on the roof and he says, I'm waiting on God to rescue me. And so God sends a helicopter down and the helicopter hovers over and says, hey man, grab hold of the ladder. And he says, no, don't worry about it. I'm waiting on God. I'm going on God to rescue me. Then he turns around and a big boat comes through. Hey, you got plenty of room. Listen, sir, here's the life jacket. Grab on and we're going to pull you aboard. And the guy's like, no, that's okay. I'm waiting on God to rescue me. Then he goes on, here come a little bitty dinghy. And the little dinghy got a man. He says, man, I'm almost out of room, but come on, jump on. I got you. We can make it. And he's like, no, I'm waiting on God to rescue me. Water froze. The house went away. He drowned it. He went to heaven and he's like, okay, God, you know, man, you say you never leave me or forsake me. And he says, I thought you were coming to get me. He said, man, I sent the helicopter. I sent the big boat. I sent the little boat. You didn't take none of them. Here you are. Many times, um, God gives us an off ramp. He gives us an off ramp for our pain, for our fear, for our mistrust. He gives us an off ramp for all that. But the challenge is that are we strong enough to take it? Are we strong enough to grab onto that life raft and not look for God to come and say, hey, this is your life raft, but to grab onto the one that we know that God is putting before us? We know that, yep, this is the right way, but I really don't want to deal with the pain. And so with that, you know, it's not the right time, or you know, no, I'm not going to deal with this person. Um, but when is a good time? When is, you know, I don't want to mess up a good relationship. You're hurting. You 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 got this great person in your preview, but you don't want to tell this person that you're hurting. You know, or you know that your lateness. I'm just gonna go here. Your lateness. Your brother's sitting here looking at your lateness and say, you know what? You know, my ex, man, that was her biggest issue. She was 5 minutes late. I don't care what she did. She was late. You know, so every woman, I'm gonna make sure she on time because I ain't dealing with this because that just tell me you don't respect me. Then the question becomes, how does that becomes disrespect for you? What does that make? How does this, me being late, becomes a disrespect, you know, is me disrespecting you? I understand that you're saying that I don't value your time. That's one thing. But disrespect is a total another thing outside of valuing, if that makes sense. So valuing a person's time is different from disrespecting you because of not valuing your time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, so, mm, so the question becomes now. So I'm just going to flip this around a little bit. You know, Kenny Rogers used to sing the song, looking for love in all the wrong places. Find love in too many faces. Looking for love, looking for love. Um, so many times we have to ask the question, you know, when Jesus said, will thou be made whole? That's what he asked the man at the pool of Bethesda, since you wanted to go to Reverend Arrington today. And the man started giving him all kind of reasons and excuses of why he could not get to the pool. Right? And Jesus said, will thou be made whole? Yeah. And the man's like, Jesus, you know, I've been trying to get down there. And Jesus said, pick up your bed and walk. The man stopped talking and he started walking. He picked up his bed and walked off. In relationships, sometimes we have to do the same thing. If it's something that we truly believe that we want, we have to stop talking about what has happened to us and pick it up and move on and allow the love, or allow the need or the want for, or the need, want, that's bad, to allow the desire for your relationship to begin the healing process in you. That make sense?
Yeah, I like it. And that was important, to him. So, we know where our boundaries are. And that was a boundary for him, for whatever past experiences that got him to that point. He's just a person that, had valued, embraced, and embodied time limits. So that was a pillar for him. And he wasn't
Yeah,
budging.
it's a
I get
pillar,
it.
but it's a pillar. It can be a pillar, but it also can be a roadblock.
Yes, and it was. And I said so, but, you know, the takeaway is that it was a universal principle. And so I didn't have to see it as it was only instrumental just to him.
Amen.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
something
Amen.
that I think that we don't talk about enough is that healing is personal, but the impact is also and always relational, just like the time thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was personal, right? That started off with a personal struggle, but had an impact that would improve and affect other areas. So the deal is, it comes a point where our pain can explain why we respond the way we do, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
excuse the damage we continue to cause if we refuse to address it. Like I said, it would have been one thing to ignore it inside of the relationship, but thank God that I was able to kind of see beyond just the minor struggle and see how that concept can happen, and be better overall. So with that, here's my question for you to expand on. At what point does being unhealed stop being your private struggle and become someone else's burden? You touched on it a little bit in the answer that you just gave, but now we're shifting it like, okay, the Bible says that, instead of going 1 mile with me, you'll go 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the same framework, how do we bear one another's burden in shifting it from a private struggle to a burden that we share?
So that depend that now that's deep.
Right now?
I said that's deep because when you really think about that, at any stage in a relationship, it can be. It can be at the beginning of the relationship. Um, because the person said, "Look, you know what? I'm not trying to." Now, this is to me a very honest person. Look, I just got out of a relationship. I really don't want one right now. I'm just looking for that friend to hang out with. I'm not trying to get close because, I'm not there yet. And then the other person turns around and says, "Oh, that you're that person. Okay, no worries. I can be a friend, and saying that Angie, you only just a friend." No, I'm just joking. But anyway,
Yeah.
uh, but she when you find that person, they already made it your burden. They've already put it out there and says, "I have a burden that I'm gonna need you to help me with."
It's a scam.
It's not a scam. It can be. It can be. But it's up to you to understand, because at that point that person has to make the other person has to make the decision. Am I getting ready to be, do I want to be a crutch? What does this relationship do? What does this relationship mean to me? Where do I want it to go? At that point, they have to actually step back and say, do I want to be a friend?
Hmm.
And don't look at it no further than that, because at that point that they're saying, I don't want a relationship. They're saying, I want a friend. But now, what kind of friend do I want to be? Do I want to be an emotional friend, or do I want to be a social friend? Do I want to be a physical friend? Hope not. But I'm just saying, because they do that. You know, what kind of friend do I want to be to this person? Do I want to be somebody they just hang out with and they go, and I want to take their mind off everything that's going on? We go out, we hang out, we do all that kind of stuff. Or do I want to be that person that listen to everything that you got going on?
Mm.
What you feeling? Yeah. And many times, I hate to say it, but the opposite sexes attract. I don't know why men go to women to try to get somebody to be that emotional friend, and some women go to men to try to be that emotional friend to talk about, yo, woe is me. When and the sad part about it is both of them in the same predicament. They both are single. That's a trap. It goes back to your trap.
A scam.
No, a trap. It's a trap on both sides. And
Right.
this is why it's a trap on both sides. Because the person that's being honest and saying that, it's a trap because he's getting ready to get intimately,
Entailed.
emotionally,
Mhm.
intimately involved with this person.
Right.
And there's that same ability for that person to get emotionally, intimately involved with that person. And now you're in trouble, because you become a crutch for each other. And so now the whole person that's healed can actually understand that and see it and say, okay, I can do this because I done been through it. But at the same time, I know how to do the Heisman and keep you at bay, to make sure that I don't get back into this woe is me,
Yeah.
which is good because they can understand the woe is me. They can deal with the woe is me, and they can pull you out of it, because they slap you around and say, no, you ain't going there with me, because this is you feeling all sorry, and you don't need to do that. So it can be powerful. It can work out, but both sides have to know what they're getting into, and know what they're focusing on and trying to get to. If that makes sense. I know I keep saying if that makes sense, because like I said, I don't want to dive too deep, but at the same time, I don't want to be too shallow.
No, it's perfect. So here's when you thought about when you were talking about that, it reminded me of the first relationship that I had post divorce, so my last divorce. And as we were getting to know each other, and I was asking all these very perceptive questions, and so I asked, why are you not in a relationship right now? You know, we're both single at this stage, right? And he said, well, I've been focusing on my, career, there's the medical school, all the things. And so I said, well, what have you been telling females? Because I know you haven't been lonely, So he was like, well, I would be telling them, I'm focused on studying, I'm doing this, that, and third. I said, let me ask you a couple of questions. 'Cause, me. He was like, okay.
In the head, moving to the side.
I said, you got to dinner? He said, yes. I said, you buy gifts every now and then? Yeah. I said, do you hang out each other's homes and things like that? Yeah. I said, so what happened to like the last situation, whatever? Well, they wanted more. I said, so let's analyze this real quick. You said to them at the beginning that this is what you want, the friendship that you
Mhm.
just described, right? Pretty much. I said, yeah, you were doing everything that boyfriends do. You were going out to dinner, you were buying gifts, you were spending time. That looked nothing like the contract you said you were issuing out. You were doing other things. And then the moment they tried to, get attached and want something more, because that's the platform you decided to build, you told them no. I said, I may need you to stop ruining good women's time by
Mm.
selling incorrect setups on your situation. I said, I'm the type of person that the contract you give is the one that I can follow. So if
Well,
you only want friendship with me, that's exactly what you're going to get. We will not be doing this hand holding. We won't be doing the dinner dates. You won't be coming by here. I won't be coming by there. We'll be doing nothing like that because I don't do that with friends. He wanted to be in a relationship. Needs to say.
so
Don't get scammed. I'll say to that. Don't get scammed.
so that's a two-way street. Hold on. That's a two-way street.
No, it wasn't. I recognized up front that he was setting these boundaries and lines, but he wanted the flexibility to make it seem like it was more, and he was killing relationships that he could have established based on the principles as when they got to a place that they were trying to pull him into relationship status where he didn't want to be, he ended the connection. Because remember at the beginning, he said all he wanted was the friendship and to get to know, and they're not really trying to date. But he did everything like boyfriends do. And they got attached.
I
He's a
mean,
handsome guy,
so
you know.
no, so
But then he
I'm gonna
stepped to
stand.
his part of what he said he wanted, and he exited on that. No, we don't get
I'm
to
gonna
scam folks. We just don't need to get
I'm
together.
gonna I'm gonna stand up for the men on this one. No,
Yes, sir.
because it's one thing to be a total gentleman and to want that friendship, want that relationship type bond, but it's the other person's also once the person has made what they want. So let's just say me and you. If I go out to dinner with you, do you think I'm going to open your door?
Yeah, I expect that.
Okay.
Shivering in bed.
Do you think I'm going to try to pay the bill?
Yeah, I kind of
Okay. Do you
anticipate that
think
too.
I'm going to treat you like a total gentleman?
Yes, me like a
Oh,
woman and you be the gentleman. Yes,
okay. Um, so all of those are friendship deals.
I agree.
But I have and I haven't, and if I do that on because I want your company, because I'm comfortable with you, then that's a totally different position. Now, I've had people, that's just my old, and I'm gonna say it, that's my Southern charm.
But I
But
appreciate that Southern charm of Southern
but
Belle, so
but
I get it. I
but
understand it.
but people take that for you wanting a lot more.
Well, they're
And
clueless,
and so the well, they're not clueless, but they are not used to having that kind
right? But
of
I'm saying
person do
that just
that.
means they don't
And
have the
they
experience of that.
but
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 I would say that even that's fine. Let's say they
mhm.
don't have the Southern gentleman experience. Okay, and they're out here in today's world with the 50-50 soft life and the foolishness that all of that comes with. Okay, if you got tripped up on somebody opening your door and paying for a meal, your expectation bar is real low anyway, because that's just good gentleman type qualities. Now, what happens in that dinner conversation or in that dinner setting and other conversations is what you should evaluate to say he wants something more of me. But just because he's nice to me, girl, listen, that's not even enough. That just meant that you've just never been treated well and you don't know the difference. But also
And
on the other side, you shouldn't say because he's nice to me, he wants to sleep with me either.
no,
Even if he wants to, but I'm just saying, don't go into it like he's only doing this because.
I mean, and most people don't, believe it or not.
Right.
Um, but which negates everything I just said.
No, we just framing it and making sure people understand.
The challenge is on both sides. Whereas the woman is sitting here loving it up, enjoying everything, being great company, and then the person's like, "Wow, she's really into me, and I'm going to try to take this further." But I understand my contract. But the person is being because they've made this contract of we are only friends. That's on. She has the right to say, "Hey, here's the contract, baby. This don't go no further than this. No kissing. You can get a good hug, and that hug ain't gonna be one of them all up, breast to breast, chest to
No,
chest,
that's a
and all that
side
junk.
church hug, my brother.
Huh?
That's a side church hug. That's what that get.
Yeah, they
No
get you
fronting
that, a
chest
kiss
type
on the
stuff.
cheek, and you walk the person to their door, and that's it. It don't call for nightcaps. It don't call for you to come in and just have some goodbyes and all that. All that goes out the window. And you can't because at that point, it's just like we've had this conversation about climbing Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
You're already climbing the ladder to making it something different. I was looking at a movie last night and this little guy been around his daddy all his life, mom, church guy, honor roll student, went to college, young lady from the other side of town, um, not the negative side of town, but just another had a whole nother different relation bringing with her parents. Was a little bit more out in the community. She uh, potentially drunk, had alcohol before she went to school. So she was out. She was kind of one of those outgoing young ladies. Not say nothing bad, but so she ran into this little guy at school, and he was a cool guy, but he was he the first they went to he asked her out for coffee. They went to coffee, and she walked out. They walked outside of the restaurant where they had coffee at, and she was like, "Oh, this was such a nice date. Thank you so much." And she moved in to kiss him in the lips, and he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," and he hugged her, and she's like, "What in the world was that?" And then, he goes on, then something else happens, and she went to kiss him again, and he kissed her on the cheek and rolled out, and then, he came in, and one night they were out. He didn't drink. He was with some friends. They kind of forced him, they kind of did that big peer pressure thing to make him drink. He got drunk. She was there. She was drinking, but of course, his first time drinking, he's totally wasted. She decided, "Hey, let me help you get back to your room. Make sure you get back to your room." Then she said, "No, go to my room since my room is a lot closer." Next thing you know, his all of his gates are down because he ain't prevent. He did already know he likes her. Now they're here. They got all this junk going on. The next thing you know, there are places that they aren't supposed to be, that he didn't want to be, but at the same point, he wanted to be, but his gates were down, so he ended up doing things he didn't want to do, and they got pregnant. And so the challenge is that compromise many times in contracts causes things to go wrong. Whereas, it could be an amazing thing. It could be an amazing relationship, and the relationship could go a lot further, but so, everybody's not upholding their end of the contract or making sure the
Right.
contract stays there. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm probably going way too long. If the woman, or if the one person that says, I'm a friend, holds that contract to its T,
Hmm.
from the other person that says that I want a friend, and they both hold the contract, then many times you can renegotiate the contract at a certain point inside of a relationship if you want the relationship to go further. But make sure that's what it is, and make sure you don't put yourself in compromising situations where you can you can you can void your own contract or void your own expectations with a person. That was a long way around.
No, I totally appreciate that. I mean, it's helpful, right, to define it. So, given all that we've talked about and looking at that, we're basically saying that being unhealed doesn't make us unworthy of love, right? But remaining unwilling to heal while inviting someone else into our pain places a weight on the relationship that was never designed to carry. Love can support healing, true love, true commitment, being in the same path, like you said, moving in the same direction. It can support it because, but it's never meant to replace it. So we definitely have to do the work. What are your closing thoughts on tonight's episode?
Pray hard, pray real hard, then pray some more. Relation, but seriously, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
Bottom line, if you care about whom you're with, you should care about everybody you're with. But if you can look at a person and say, I want this relationship to go a little bit further, or I want this person. This person is one that I really want to get close to, and I want to get to the next level, then you need to reevaluate yourself of where you are with the level you are today, where you are with your past pains and where you are with your current pain. Where what do you need to, what bones do you have in your closet that you need to take care of that are going to hinder or trip this relationship up? Because you can always look in your past, and I'm going to say it like this. You can ask God to look into your past, to show you your past. I ain't going to look into your past, to show you where you're going to mess up a relationship. And God will show you that. And we have to be honest, be true to you. Um, be true to where you are emotionally, physically, and spiritually. If you can't be true to yourself, how can you be true to the other person? If you don't know yourself, how can you even try to know another person? So understand where you are before you're try to move into another relationship with somebody else, especially and you know, especially if you want something more than a friendship. Because hurt people hurt people. And if you're not ready for it, don't try to go for it. It's just like a big race. Why are you going to try to run a 5 mile race when you haven't ran a 1 mile?
Mm.
So, why try to go into an intimate or deep relationship when you just came out of one that you crashed and burned, or that left you totally scarred, and now you're going to try to get out there and run another marathon? You're going to hurt somebody. and you're going to hurt yourself. Because the first person that get hurt mostly in those relationships is yourself. And then you begin to lash out at other people.
I like it. I like it. So tonight we open with one question. You say you want love, but you're healed. But are you healed enough to sustain it? I hope this question stays with you long after this conversation ends. This wasn't about judging where we are. It's honestly about recognizing where we are. We all have wounds. The question is whether we're allowing those wounds to define us or allowing God to heal them, because healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming emotionally available to love well and to be loved well. Remember tonight's seed. Healing is personal, but its consequences are relational. The healthier we become, the healthier our relationships become. If tonight's conversation encouraged or challenged you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and share the Purpose and Powerful podcast with someone who needs to hear it. And join us for our next episode, Triggered, Not Toxic, as we explore the difference between reacting from unhealed wounds and responding from a place of healing. Not every emotional reaction becomes a situation where someone is toxic, but it sometimes is an invitation to discover what still needs healing within us. Until next time, stay rooted in purpose, pursue healing, and remember, the goal isn't simply to find healthy love, it's to become healthy enough to receive it. Good night, everyone, and we will talk to you soon. Good night, Thomas.
See ya.
Bye for now.